This is Research Like a Pro, episode 251, Florence Matilda Creer, A Favorite Photo. Welcome to Research Like a Pro, a genealogy podcast about taking your research to the next level, hosted by Nicole Dyer and Diana Elder, accredited genealogist professional. Diana and Nicole are the mother-daughter team at FamilyLocket.com and the authors of Research Like a Pro, a genealogist guide. With Robin Worthland, they also co-authored the companion volume, Research Like a Pro with DNA. Join Diana and Nicole as they discuss how to stay organized, make progress in their research, and solve difficult cases. Let's go! Today's episode is sponsored by newspapers.com. Break down genealogy brick walls with a subscription to the largest online newspaper archive. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Research Like a Pro today.
Hi, Nicole. How are you doing?
Hi, Mom Diana. I'm great. And, last episode, I promised I would tell everyone more about my Dyer research that I've been doing and how I've been kind of organizing all my multiple test takers. And I have kind of this method that I've been doing. I have a lot of test takers. I started with my father-in-law. Then I recruited his two brothers. Then I expanded to like 6 of his third cousins who all descend from John Robert Dyer, who is the research subject. I'm trying to find his father and mother, but mostly I'm focusing on the Dyer line right now. So I've got all of those. And then there was a Y DNA match that was an exact match that came in last year at 111. And so that's an extremely important match. And that individual, his DNA results have been shared with me on Ancestry. So I have not only can I see that he's a Y DNA match, but I can also see his autosomal matches now and also his sister. So I have those two who descend from a different Dyer line that I haven't connected to my Dyer line. Then I have another person who's shared with me who also has a Dyer line. She's a distant DNA match to my father-in-law, and I thought that by looking at her matches, it would help to see if they truly were related on that Dyer line. And the person who manages that kit was somebody who follows us. And so she had reached out to me, and I thought, well, maybe I can figure this out if I look at her matches and kind of see things from her perspective. So I've got 3 test takers who don't descend from John Robert Dyer, but who descend from related Dyer lines. And then I've got about 10 that descend from John Robert Dyer. So I have a lot, and it's really fun. I work mostly in Ancestry right now. What I do is when I find a relevant match who descends from Baldy Dyer or one of the other Dyer lines that I'm working on, I put them in Airtable. And then I group my Airtable DNA match details table by the match. And then I go to the matches profile page and I use that drop down list to see if that person matches any of my other test takers, which are like 13 people. And so I go through each one and do like pairwise comparisons. Have you ever done that before?
Yeah, when I was doing my Cox project and creating that McGuire chart, that's
Mm-hmm.
exactly what I did.
Yep. So it actually works out really well. And then I just put all of the people who match that person in my Airtable log, which is grouped by the match. And so I have, let's say there's a match named Diana Smith. Then I have like 4 or 5 matches to Diana Smith all grouped into one little section. And it's rare that I'll find most of my test takers match the person. Usually only like 4 or 5 or 6 of the people will match that individual. Every once in a while, I've come across a match who matches everyone. Like they match 80% of my test takers, and it's kind of cool. But usually it's just some of them. So that's how I've been doing it. And when I find a new match like that, I always look at their shared matches to make sure that they're matching other descendants of John Robert Dyer, or for the 3 test takers who aren't descended from John Robert Dyer, I look to see that they are matching other people in the project that aren't on a different line. And often while I'm looking at the shared matches list, I find another match who's relevant. And so I open them up and I look at their profile page and see if they match all of my test takers. So it's been really exciting. And the main takeaway that I have from this project is that the Dyer lines from Virginia, North Carolina, Georgia, and Tennessee are very difficult to trace with documentary research. And there are trees that have all kinds of different parents for people, lots of conflicts, few sources. And I'm just finding that I'm going to have to do a lot of the documentary research to link up these lines that I'm finding, because they all have kind of different people as the parents of their end of line known ancestor. They've hypothesized different people and they put in these different guys for their dire line. But I've been finding that some of them I think are probably more accurate than others. And actually had a big find over the weekend. I was looking at one of these DNA matches I'd found and looking at the family search tree for one of their ancestors, a James Dyer, who was supposedly a son of Baldy Dyer. And you may know that I've researched Baldy Dyer in the past because I'd seen some DNA matches from him, and I hadn't really had success with locating his parents or his descendants. Just he kind of died in the War of 1812, and it was hard to trace those children forward. Well, I found this one match who traced back to a James who was supposedly a son of Baldy, and his family search profile had a link to a book written by a Watson B. Dyer, published in the 80s, and it had tons of research on all these Dyer lines from Virginia and North Carolina, and just a lot of documentary research putting families together, and a lot of it just seemed really high quality. And I was super excited because it had a whole section on Baldy, and it had a will in Russell County, Virginia, where Baldy Dyer's father mentions him in his will. So now I have Baldy's father and his brothers. So I'm really excited.
That is so exciting. How fun that there was that other source out there that you found just by looking at profiles on Family Search and the sources there.
Yeah, I always look at the sources because I want to see, like I said, there's been so many trees without source citations and without documentation. So if I see an individual with sources, I'm like, oh, this is great.
Right. What did they find? Oh, that's
Yeah.
exciting. Okay, so I have a question for you back on your Airtable. So, are you going to then put these matches in your Lucid chart, or do you already have a charting diagram?
Yes, I actually need to update my diagram because, like I had said, there were a lot of incorrect or conflicting ancestors back before the 1820s. So my lucid chart currently reflects some inaccuracies from people's trees. And what I think I'm going to do is wipe out all of those people from the older times. And I'm just going to have the matches going back to their most distant ancestor that's been verified with sources. Then I'll just kind of leave it
Nice.
blank and I'll see what I have at that point. And I think I'll have them in kind of little clusters, which I already kind of have, like all the descendants of this Sarah Ellen Dyer who married a Cope. I have like 5 matches descending from her, but her father is kind of unknown. So I have her cluster, then I have this James and this Archibald who supposedly come from Baldy. Then I have the Y-DNA matches line who all come from John David Dyer and Eliza York. So I have these little clusters of people that I can't tie together yet, but I have some hypotheses. But what I need to do is just do the documentary research myself on each of them to see who their likely parents are. And knowing that they all converge at some point will help.
Well, and the more you work on families like this and you do the research, you just start making connections. You recognize locations and names. And so when you look at a new record, maybe it will mean more to you than just
Mm-hmm.
looking at it dry without any of that background knowledge.
Right. And after looking at so many DNA matches on this side of the family, I really start to get a clue of where people lived. And I had no idea there was a huge branch of Dyers in Georgia that are related, but this is where the Y-DNA matches line lived. So it's just interesting to see how the family started in Virginia and then just spread all over the South.
And we see that all the time. Well, that's great. Thanks for sharing that with us. I really love your idea about how you are using Airtable. I'm going to adapt that with what I'm doing. And that is one of the reasons why we love Airtable, that ability to group by each DNA match and then see who matches them. That's really great. That's super
Yeah.
helpful. How fun.
And every once in a while, I'll come across a match that I think looks relevant. And then it only matches one of my test takers. And I'm like, oh, that one actually isn't relevant. That must be related on a different side of the family.
Yes. Well, when I was working on my Royston case and I was evaluating the matches, I saw one match that had 3 potential common ancestors and none of them were a Royston. So it gave me a clue that, okay, maybe this match is not on the Royston side and it's on a different side of my test taker. So we always have to be aware of that possibility when we're working back so far in time that there could be another ancestor that contributed that DNA.
So true.
Well, still our announcements. We have our Airtable Quick Reference Guide available for PDF download on our website. And we have our Research Like a Pro webinar series for 2023 ongoing, where we have monthly case studies featuring the Research Like a Pro and Research Like a Pro with DNA process. And we're enjoying this so much. We've heard so many good comments from people saying that they just love seeing how we actually do the work. How do we do this research? How do we write it up? So it's been really, really fun. And we invite you to join us. So for May, we have got a guest presenter, Barb Groth, who will be presenting a case study from one of her Research Like a Pro projects. And that is, who are the parents of Catherine and Elizabeth Sear? So that seems like that will be just fascinating. We're excited to have Barb come on and present for us. Our next Research Like a Pro study group is coming up quickly. This will be beginning the end of August and go through November of 2023. This one is not with DNA, but it's an excellent foundational piece if you want to add DNA to your research in the next study group, which will be in the spring with DNA. We have the peer group leader application on our website, and we would love to have anyone apply who's been through the Research Like a Pro process and knows how to do this work using our process. We have our newsletter, which has coupons for sales on our various courses, and we would invite you to join us. All right, so upcoming conference, the end of this month, we have the National Genealogical Society Family History Conference in Richmond, Virginia, which we're very excited about. I will be going out to Virginia for the very first time, and I hope to see many of our listeners there. And I am currently working on getting all my presentations into shape. So many fun presentations I get to do, and they're all brand new, sharing a lot of my genealogy tips and tricks. So it's going to be a fun conference. Well, today for our episode, we are going to talk about one of my 52 Ancestors blog posts. So this year, I'm trying to write every week about an ancestor using the prompts from 52 Ancestors that Amy Johnson Crow puts out. One of the fun prompts was titled A Favorite Photo. Well, you probably have favorite photos just like I do, and it's hard to choose just one. But I just kept coming back to a photo that I have of my grandmother, Florence Matilda Creer, in her early years. I only knew her as an older woman, her last 15 years of her life. I think she was about 70 when I was born. She died when I was 15, since she was, in her mid 80s. And so I only knew this older woman. I never knew her when she was young, but there is such fun pictures of her when she is young. And my grandmother and I were kindred spirits. We loved a book. She gave me a book every birthday and Christmas, and she was always reading, always learning. And we both loved to travel. Yeah, we both love our family. She kept scrapbooks. I kept scrapbooks. She had a beautiful garden, loved her roses. I love gardening. So it's just really fun to connect and think of all the different things that we shared. And I had written a lot about Florence on Family Locket as a member of the American War Mothers during World War II and her membership as a daughter of Utah Pioneers, that society. But I had not really written much about her before she got married. And she got married in 1916 at the age of 24. So I decided I would dive in a little bit deeper about some of her early years. So she was born on 12 December 1892 in Spanish Fork, Utah, and she was the oldest of 11 children. And then she died on 12 November 1977 in Burley, Idaho, and she was the wife of Edward Raymond Kelsey and the mother of 6 children.
All right. Well, the photo you picked is so fun because it's not a professional sitting or anything. It's like Florence with her friends, right?
Yep.
So if you go to the blog post, you can see the picture, but I'll describe it to you. Florence may have been born in the 19th century, but the photo shows her with 2 friends and depicts her as a 20th century woman with some personality. So it's kind of funny because her face is slightly blurry. So she was either not quite ready for the photo or protesting the arm around her shoulder from the man next to her, it looks like. But she has a fun, fashionable outfit on with white button up boots, a skirt, a striped top, and a hat that's slightly askew, which I think it was meant to be like that. So that's cute. And Florence loved having nice suits, hats, and coats for going out. And we have a lot of pictures of her wearing hats, always at an angle. So, this is a fun photo, but here are some questions that the photo evokes. Who are the man and the woman with Florence? And why was this taken? Was it a special event? The photo is labeled. So the label reads Florence, Matilda, Creer, and friends at LDS Business College. But where did that label come from?
Well, as I was putting it in, I just made that label up. So I knew she'd gone to LDS Business College, and so it kind of seemed to me like that was where it would be, but I really didn't know.
So when you got this picture from your mom, you labeled it.
Yeah, I digitized all these pictures and put labels on them. And I didn't really do the research on it. I just thought, oh, that looks like that's probably what it is.
Well, it's better than nothing for posterity, I guess.
Yeah. Yep.
But that is some insight into the fact that labels may have been put on by somebody who didn't really know.
Oh yeah, that's exactly right. It goes back to who was the informant, right?
Yep. This looks like it was during LDS Business College.
Hmm.
Well, she did attend LDS Business College during that time frame, but more research was needed to really determine if this was truly where the picture was taken. And starting with the clothing, we can look and see that Florence's outfit looks to be the height of fashion. And you can tell that by comparing it with the November 1916 Good Housekeeping issue, which features a similar traveling outfit and the same laced boots.
Oh my goodness, it's so fun to find these old catalogs that show the latest style, and I love them. I actually really love that outfit. I wish we still had that. I would maybe wear it. It's so fun.
Yeah, in the blog post, I love that you put a screenshot of this Good Housekeeping magazine. Where did you find that?
Well, I did that with my friend Google. I think I did a search for 1916 fashion and pulled that up. Actually, the citation that I put on that, it was from Flickr. So I think I did a Google search, but then the photo was on Flickr. We have just so many resources now online. All right, let's do a quick word from our sponsor, newspapers.com. Did your ancestor disappear from vital records? Maybe they moved or got married. Newspapers can help you find them and tell their stories. Or have you ever had trouble figuring out how people tie into your family tree? Newspapers are filled with birth notices, marriage announcements, and obituaries. Items like these are a great resource for determining family relationships. On newspapers.com, you can explore more than 800 million newspaper pages from across the US, UK, Canada, and beyond in just seconds. Their easy-to-use search feature lets you filter your results by date, location, a specific paper, and more. When you find something interesting, the newspapers.com clipping tool makes it a snap to share it with family and friends. You can even save it directly to your ancestry tree. For listeners of this podcast, newspapers.com is offering new subscribers 20% off a Publisher Extra subscription, so you can start exploring today. Just use the code FamilyLocket at checkout. All right, well, let's talk a little bit more about Florence. Towards the end of her life, she wrote her life history, and I am so grateful that my mother made her do that. I don't think she wanted to, but she did. And I have these great little snippets that give some clues to the photo. I always knew that she had gone to the World's Fair, is what, my mom would always say. And when I looked that up, I found it was actually called the Panama Pacific International Exposition. And it was a World's Fair. It was held in San Francisco, California, from February 20th to December 4th, 1915. And so, because I had the clue that this was a traveling outfit from that Good Housekeeping magazine in 1916, I thought, oh, maybe she's going on a trip. And she treated herself to this new outfit before taking the train from Salt Lake City to San Francisco. It sounds more like something you would do for a big trip than just going to business college, right?
Yeah.
So this is what she wrote. While I was a librarian, when I was around 23 or 24 years old, I joined a group of 13 people and went to the World's Fair in San Francisco. I had saved the money from working at the library. We stayed at hotels. Also, we went down to San Diego where there was a smaller fair. While at San Francisco, we'd sneak away from our chaperones and go to the stage play Birth of a Nation with Lillian Gish, also Chinatown. We stayed 2 weeks at the fair. We went by train. So I love that little sneak peek into her life. And the part about sneaking away from chaperones when she's 23 or 24, that's kind of hilarious. That oh my goodness. But yeah, that was just so fun. And I did find a picture, it's in the blog post, of the Palace of Education at the Panama Pacific International Exposition. And I just really hypothesized that as a teacher and librarian, that she likely visited the Palace of Education, which is so beautiful. It looks very, I don't know, I almost want to say Asian in style, like lots of really neat shrubbery and trees around it. So I can just imagine for my grandmother growing up in Utah, this must have been the adventure of a lifetime.
For sure. I love the picture that you found of the Palace of Education. That's so neat. It looks like a postcard picture.
Yeah, I think it was a postcard. And I wish I had something more that she maybe had sent home or kept, but nothing was saved in her materials from that era, just her written history.
Yeah, I wonder if she even brought any of that when she got married and came to Idaho.
Maybe not. And, if she had sent something home to her parents, that could be with a stack of papers that someone else in the family inherited. Or maybe it just got thrown out because I bet you anything she sent postcards home. I think she would have done
Right.
that,
Yeah.
but who knows where they ended up.
Well, could the setting of the photo of Florence and her friends be San Francisco? I think that is pretty good. Then the fact that she is kind of looking a little mischievous in this photo. I like the part that you correlated with about sneaking away from chaperones. It shows that they had a flair for adventure, right?
Yep.
Unless those friends in the photo were the chaperones. Who knows?
That's funny.
Well, another snippet from Florence's history about her education can give us a clue about who these friends could have been. She said, I attended schools at Spanish Fork. After I had completed my junior year in high school, Uncle John Creer, who was the county superintendent, asked me to go to Castella, a little town in the mountains above Spanish Fork, to teach school. It was a most unpleasant experience, as there was real deep snow, and it was difficult for the pupil to attend regularly. Each weekend, I would catch the train and go home. After 1 year, I came back to Spanish Fork and was a librarian in the new high school. I was glad for the job so I could help out at home. I ordered all the books for the library. I kept this job for 4 years, then went to LDS Business College in Salt Lake to learn how to type. I lived at the Hotel Utah with Ellen Anderson. I was offered a raise and a change of jobs if I would learn how to teach typing. I also took training at the Salt Lake Library under Joanna Sprague.
All right. So I was really interested in Ellen Anderson, who was such a good friend. And knowing that she lived at the Hotel Utah with her, I wondered if maybe she was the other woman in the photo. So I turned to Family Search to see if I could find Ellen. And I really didn't think that it would be very easy to find her because that seems like a very common name. But I did know about the years that she would be born, since she would be the same age as my grandmother, I hypothesized. So I did find a likely candidate, and I found that Ellen's memories had a picture, and then there was an obituary that really gained some insight into her life and made it pretty apparent that this was the Ellen Anderson my grandmother wrote about. So her obituary says Miss Ellen Anderson, 42, who taught school for a number of years in Payson and most recently in Spanish Fork, died unexpectedly Thursday morning at the home of her sister. She was born July 30th, 1892 at Lake Shore, a daughter of George and Rosetta M. Anderson. She graduated from the Spanish Fork High School and the Normal Department of the BYU. She taught in the Nebo School District until 1931. So I correlated that. My grandmother was also born in 1892. She attended Spanish Fork schools and was a teacher. And so I was pretty sure that this was the correct Ellen Anderson. Ellen never married, and my grandmother might have been in the same situation had my grandfather not written her and asked if she'd move to his Idaho homestead and marry him. And so they seem like they were really on the same trajectory. And so, studying Florence's life history, my best hypothesis for the photo is that that was Ellen in the photo, and it was taken during the trip to San Francisco in 1915 with her good friend. I still have no idea who the man is. She didn't write about any other men, but gave me a clue. So I don't know. I guess I could always look for records of LDS Business College and everyone who attended, but that seems kind of like a needle in a haystack. So at this point, I'll just be happy that I think I've identified the other women. I don't know. What do you think? I have both pictures, the one from Family Search and then the snapshot.
Oh, yeah. It looks like a match.
Yeah, I thought it did too. It was really exciting because I've seen this picture like my entire life. I've loved it forever, but I'd never really researched it. So it was really fun to write the blog post and research it and come to a little bit better idea and to correlate my grandma's history with the picture.
Yeah, I think to identify the man, I would probably look at Ellen Anderson's family members next and see if it was a relative. And then,
Yeah,
yeah, you could look at LDS Business College records, but that might be a needle in a haystack.
yeah. That's a good idea, though, to look at her family. Maybe it's her brother. It could be something just as simple like that. Great
I know
idea.
I can't tell how old the man is. He looks like he could be older than them, but it's hard to tell.
I don't know. Yeah, I can't tell either.
Because his hat is covering his hair. So if he's bald or balding, then you would think he's older. But if he's not, and I can't tell if he has glasses on or not. It looks like he might, but then I can't tell if that's just a wrinkle.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's a good photograph, but it's a little bit blurry in a few places.
Yeah, I wonder if he was like a teacher or a chaperone or.
Well, and there is a building in the background, and I tried to do some searching on that, but unfortunately, sometimes those older buildings are just not extant anymore, and if there's not a historical photograph, that can be more difficult. So
Mhm.
I didn't really come up with a lot of hits on trying to find the old buildings at the LDS Business College. I'd probably need to go somewhere. Maybe the Utah Archives has got a collection of photos or something that's not online, and maybe I
Yeah,
could
or
get
you could
some
even just
clues.
ask like a Utah historic buildings expert to look at it and tell you the answer.
Right, if they have some ideas. I also tried looking at the trees to see if the trees gave me any clues, but they look like generic trees.
Could be in Utah, could be in San Francisco.
Yeah,
Who
yeah,
knows?
exactly. And it could be that they were still in Utah getting ready to get on the train. You know, it
Hmm.
could be that she was getting ready to go and had this great outfit, and they're saying, okay, we're going to get ready, take a picture of us before we leave. So it could have been in Utah, but it was still, the setting was they were going off on this trip. Anyway, it was fun.
I just think it's funny that both women have their outside hand up on the man's hand, like they're trying to get it off, or or they're patting it or something.
Yeah, it is kind of funny. I agree. I
Why
agree.
does this guy have his arms around us?
Yep. And he looks very dapper in his hat and dressed up in a very
Hmm.
fashionable suit.
Yeah, the hat is very much like a Mary Poppins style
Mm-hmm.
from that era.
Mm-hmm. Great picture. So fun.
Well, thanks for sharing about your process to research this photo and your findings. It's fun to talk about mystery photos, and it just makes me think of all the fun photos we have in our collection to do the same with and to learn more about some of our closer ancestors and their lives and correlating them with their life history that some of them did right, which is such a treasure.
Absolutely. And you never know what you can discover when you start researching a photo. I just really had no idea I could come up with so many different ideas and hypotheses. So, really fun to think of that avenue of our research as well.
So fun. Well, thanks for sharing. And to all our listeners, we'll talk to you guys again next week. Bye bye.
All right. Bye bye, everyone.
Thank you for listening. We hope that something you heard today will help you make progress in your research. If you want to learn more, purchase our books, Research Like a Pro and Research Like a Pro with DNA on Amazon.com and other booksellers. You can also register for our online courses or study groups of the same names. Learn more at familylocket.com/services. To share your progress and ask questions, join our private Facebook group by sending us your book receipt or joining our courses. To get updates in your email inbox each Monday, subscribe to our newsletter at familylocket.com/newsletter. Please subscribe, rate, and review our podcast. We read each review and are so thankful for them. We hope you'll start now to research like a pro.